Hello everyone, and welcome back for another video on journaling on a budget. And today I'm going to make woven tags and pockets. I saw Wendy Mason do this quite a while ago and I was playing around with it, and so I just thought that I would put some in our journal. And this is one that I made a while ago. And this one I put Mod Podge on. I don't really care for the Mod Podge as well. So today I'm going to use water glue. But it's really easy and it's a good way to use up your book pages. That one is a book page and scrapbooking paper. I just had a rectangle of scrapbooking paper I wanted to use up. And and then I put cardstock on the back. But it's a really good way to use your book pages. So what I've done is these are just Reader's Digest pages. It really doesn't matter what you use. But for my pieces that I'm going to weave through, I keep the whole width of the book page. And then for the one that I'm going to weave into, I make it a little bit smaller. That way I just have pieces of the parts I'm weaving through still sticking out. And it makes it easier to play with them. So what I'm going to do with the actual, I guess this would be your base, I'm just going to cut up along the words so that I get a pretty straight line, because I'm not real good at cutting straight lines. And I'm going to do that on both sides, so at least they'll be close to straight. And then what I'm going to do is I want to give this a little bit of color. I noticed on these ones I didn't really care that I didn't do anything at all with the book pages before I wove them. So I'm going to do that before I weave because it will be easier. And I want to show you my new favorite background stamp. So this is where I'm going to use my background stamp, and I'm just going to take a piece of, this is just a piece of my book, and I'm just going to wad it up. And now if you're doing this on something that's really important, you're going to want to stamp off to see what it looks like, because every time it looks different. But I'm just going to dab that in my pad, and then I am just going to start putting it on my page. And I just love how it just comes out. It's different every time. Not here, basically. When you're using it, it's going to be the same pattern, but each time that you make one, because I don't save them, it comes out a little bit different. But it does a really nice job of getting just some background interest without having a background stamp. And you can kind of make, turn it a little bit so it's not like, here I got like 4 of them in a row that were kind of the same. And so just get it on there. No rhyme, no reason. Look at it when you're done. And like here, I don't hardly have any, so I want a little bit there, a little bit down here, and on this edge. So I just go through and see if there's any places that I still want a little bit more ink. And there we go. Nope, one more right there. So now my background is done. And it went from this to this. And just that little bit will make a difference in your weaving. So then this is our base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fold this in half. I do everything the lazy way. You can get out like a Sharpie or not a Sharpie, X-Acto knife, and cut each strip with an X-Acto knife. You can measure. To me, it doesn't. These are very forgiving. You don't need perfection at all, and so. But I do just want that to be straight. So I'm going to fold that in half. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my strips into here, and I'm going to stop right at the top line of my printing. And if you think, well, I don't want that great big gap up there, you can always trim it down later, but it's nice to have a line, or you can draw a line exactly where you want to stop. And then just make weavy lines. You can make straight lines. I like the looks of the weavy lines, or, pointy lines. You can do it however you'd like, but you just want to kind of make sure that you stop. I'm stopping pretty much at the top of the letters, and you want to make sure that you stop kind of in the same spot each time. So that is where your strips that you are putting in are going to stop. You want them to be able to kind of line up nicely. And again, just go until you get as many as you want. The more that you put in, the more fiddly it will be, but that still just, you know, it just makes it fun, really. And so there we go. Now we've got all of our strips cut into there, and we're just going to open that up. And then I'm going to use this for my weaving strips. And again, what I do with this is I just try and use the words, the typed words on here as my guide for cutting a fairly straight line. These ones you do want to be fairly straight because they need to line up against each other, but they don't have to be the same size. So you can have some that are skinnier and some that are wider, and that just adds to the interest of your page, of your tag. I'm not going to do them too small so that that one's really kind of wide, but I'm going to do it anyways, just so that it doesn't take as long for me to weave them. And if you have some that are wider and some that are skinnier, then you may want to, you know, kind of alternate them, do a wide one and then do a fat or do a skinny one, and just kind of go back and forth. And starting at the words at the top of this page and ending at the words at the bottom, that should be the same amount of distance that I have here, because I started at the words and I stopped at the words. And so you should have enough strips to fit in there. So there we go. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to weave it, and it's just as easy as that. I usually, these words are up, so I try and remember to make the words on my other strips go down. And all I did with this was I just used my little dauber and did the whole thing with the same distress inks as I did this with, which I really should shut that up. Okay, and I usually, you know, just come down ways. See, now because we left these, because these are longer, it gives you something to kind of hang on to adjust them where you need them to be. And then you just cut them off at the end. But it's really nice to have that little bit of extra strip there. And so here we went over the first one, under, over, under, over, under, over. So we're going to start, the next one is going to be under, because that one is over, this one will be under. And then go over and under, over, under, over, and under. Okay, now if I had cut one more line, this one would have been under and this one would have been over. They would have been opposites. I'd cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I cut an even number of lines. So with an even number of lines, they wind up under on both ends and over on both ends. Had I cut one more line, one end would be over, the back end would be under, but the next one would be just the opposite. So that's, you know, totally fine. However, you know, however many lines you cut, it works. And I just wanted to do this whole thing in real time, just so that you can see that, you know, it really is not hard. It doesn't take a lot of time at all. The longest time is I decoupage this. Well, I don't want to use the decoupage. I use my water glue because I didn't care for the Mod Podge. I'm going to water glue it to the cardstock, and we have to wait for that to dry. That is what takes the longest. But now this one was under, so this one is over. So this one again, I started under. You just do the opposites in weaving, and you just get all the way through, and they really don't get tough until you get right to the bottom. The last couple might be just a little bit more fiddly. I'm going to kind of push these all up, and then I'm going to, I've got like 4 in there, so I'm going to glue those down really quick. And just a quick little dab of glue. I like to use tacky glue. The Fabri-Tac catches really quickly, but in this case, I don't really want it to catch really quickly. I want to get these down. So the ones that are over, I'm going to do right here. Oh, way too much glue. And then I will flip it over and do the other ones that are over. Now see, look at the difference between weaving pages that you've done nothing with and weaving pages that you have. Big difference. So, you know, it just, you can do just anything to them just to set them off. Make the two pieces just a little bit different. Like I have the one solid and the one with just the background parts, so that it shows up. Okay, now the reason I use the tacky glue is now that I've got that glued down, I can, with the tacky glue, I can go in and make sure that I have it straight, that I have them kind of lined up with each other. I don't have a great big gap. And you'll see your gaps over here between these pieces. You're going to cut those off, and it will not be noticeable on your weaving if you have a little gap here or there. So don't worry about it if you get all done and go, oh, there's a space right there. When you cut that off, you don't notice that space here. So it's okay. I like to try and get them lined up so that it'll fit better at the end if you keep them as lined up as you can. Okay, so we've got those glued down. This one is under. My strip is under the base, so the next one's going to be over. And I usually work just down a ways because it just is a little bit easier. And it literally is just over, under. And then get those on, and then just get them on there. That one was over, so this one's going to be under. And like I said, if you work towards the bottom, it's easier to move the strips up and down and up and down on the base. So there's that. And we were under, so we're going to go over. And we're getting very close. I know that I only have 4 strips left after this because that's how many I cut. And because I cut them just the length of this page, they should fit pretty good. Now, you don't have to, you don't have to do it that way. A little bit of a skinnier one. I'm going to go, that was over, so this one is under. And now as we're getting closer to the bottom, you can't, flip them up and down as far because up here now they're solid. So it gets a little bit slower right here, but not much at all. Okay, whoops. I'm going to really quickly glue those 4 down. And then we'll do our last 2 strips. And I do have one that I already have drying. After I water glued it to the cardstock, then I stuck it in a heavy book, just like Papa says. Except Papa always says you got to let it sit overnight. I'm never patient enough to let it sit overnight, but I do let it sit for a while to set up. Now this one here at the bottom is way off. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to just get the glue on it. And then I'll turn it over and get them all adjusted. So those all look pretty good, actually, I think, except for this very bottom one. Now this one sticks way out here. Doesn't matter, we're cutting the tabs off, so they don't have to line up on the 2 sides. And there we go. Alrighty, now we've just got our final ones to do. And now, like I said, it gets a little bit fiddly at this point. So this one was under, so this one needs to be over. And if you push it, here's the line. If you push it a little bit past the line, then you can kind of lift that up and tuck this in. And that makes it, now here I pushed it a little bit past the line, which is here. So now I can just separate that and just kind of push that up through there. And that just helps. If your little bit of an end gets a little bit wrinkly, from doing that, it's okay because that's just part of the tab and you are going to cut it off anyways. Now for the very last one, what I want to do is I want to see if my strip is about the same as what I have left in what I have cut. And this is cut only about 1/4 of an inch, maybe only even 1/8. There's not much left there. I've got from the edge of this line to the bottom of this word. That's not enough space for me to even try and thin this down. Now, if that had been a little bit, let's say it was this wide, I would just trim this down so that it fit in that last space. But being that this is so close, literally not even 1/4 of an inch, I'm calling it done right there. Or I could try and extend those lines a little bit to put in one more. But I don't need to put in one more. I just needed to finish to the bottom. And so there we go. Now they are all in there, and I'm just going to trim off the tabs. And then we'll just glue it onto our piece of cardstock and let it dry. And there we go. Now don't forget to keep these. These make great little collage bits. Just have a little box or something that you can throw them into and use them for later. You can use them on this same page in the book, because we're going to use this to make a tuck spot and a tag. And then we'll put them on a page. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put my water glue on the back of this. Now what this does is this glues the whole thing together so you can cut it apart. Not just putting the water glue on there, but then putting it on the solid piece of cardstock. So, because otherwise if you cut this as it is, it's only glued at the very ends. So the whole thing would fall apart. So you do have to do something to make it more solid if you're going to cut it up. And also because these are just book pages, they, they're very thin. So, they really need to be made a little bit more solid. And so there, we've just got our water glue on there. And then I'm just going to make a mess. Let me see. Yeah. I'm going to kind of sit this off to the side. You won't be able to see the whole thing because I can't set it right in that glue that I just did. But I am just going to put this on my piece of cardstock. I usually don't try and line it up with the edge. I put it close to the edge, and then I go and trim it down later, because trying to line it up, if I don't get it exact, it's going to drive me crazy. Now the one thing that I did want to try and do is not get much on the back, because this is going to be my journaling spot on my tag. And so that's why I didn't want to set it in there, because it would have got all over the back of my cardstock. So you want to try and keep that cardstock clean if you're making it as a tag or something that's going to be written on, or a flip up or something. So there we go. That's it. Let's see. It's been 17 minutes. That's start to finish. And the only thing I did beforehand was I put the brown on that one piece of paper. But we did all the background stamping. We cut it and everything. And it took 17 minutes, and it's done. It just has to dry. So I will be back in just a second. I'm going to grab out the other one I have. We're going to turn it into a tag and a tuck spot. So I'll be back in just a sec. Okay, I'm back. And this is the page that I made a little bit earlier. And it's dry now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one straight edge. And then I'll use that to make sure that I get the rest of it straight. Because no matter what, once you use your cutter, that edge will be straight. It may be on a bit of an angle or something, but it is a straight edge. It's not crooked or anything like that. So now you use that straight edge against the top of your cutter to cut the rest of the... Now this one will be straight because it will at least be a 90-degree angle, or whatever that angle is. And then I will use that one that I just cut that was straight. And then I will use that one that I cut that was straight. And that will ensure that all of my sides are straight. Because I cut my book pages by hand, they weren't necessarily exactly straight. So I do like, for my tags and that type of thing, I do like to use my cutter. But if you don't have a cutter, use your scissors. Use a ruler to draw a line if you need to, because I can't draw a straight line for love nor money. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide I want my pocket to be about this tall. So if that's going to, or not my pocket, my tag. So then I'm going to have this left over for my pocket. So I'm going to cut it right in this area. And I think I'm going to cut it, do I want to cut it in the middle? I'm trying to decide if I want to cut it right on one of the lines or if I want to cut it in the middle of one of the lines. And I think I want to cut it in the middle of one of the lines. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I cut this strip in half. Now my words look a little bit crooked. That's because, I didn't cut everything straight to start with. So if that's going to bother you, make sure that you have straight lines to start out with. But this is still going to be Okay, that is just over 2¼ inches wide. And that is just over 2¼ inches wide. So this really is still square, even though my words look a little bit uneven, but it's not bad. And then this is going to be my tag. Now, do I want my tag this wide, or do I want to make my tag a little bit skinnier? But I think for this one, I'm going to leave my tag this wide. And I'm just going to take a template. I have one of my templates that I cut here. And I'm going to cut my tag, and I'll see what that looks like. If I don't like it, I can always make it smaller. But if I cut it smaller to start with, I can't make it any bigger. So I'm just going to cut around my template. To get the top of my tag shape. And then I'm going to turn it over. And I find it easier to cut from the right-hand side. That's why I turn it over. And that's because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, you might do it exactly the opposite way. And I do try and, be careful to cut my tag so that it looks even on both sides. And I like the looks of that. So we're going to leave that like that. I'm going to punch a hole in the top. And now the one thing is, this tag will not fit inside this pocket. Just thought of that, because this pocket, they're both exactly the same width. So do I want this tag to fit in this pocket, or am I going to use this tag on another page? If I make this a tuck, if I just glue it here and glue it here, then I can put this tag in like this, and they'll be offset, and I think I like that. So I'm going to leave this tag this wide because I like the way that looks. And then when I put it in my journal, let's grab a piece of paper here. When I put it in my journal, I will just glue this in the corner of my page, and I will just glue it on two sides, and then this will tuck in like that. And I like the way that looks. I like it being offset. If I did it exactly in the middle, they would kind of blend together. So being offset, they don't blend together, but they look great together. So that is our woven tags. Thank you very much, Wendy, for reminding me about paper weaving. I had not thought about this in years. I haven't done it since I was a little girl. And then I saw Wendy's video on that, and it was like, oh, I forgot, and that is so fun. I want to do that again. And so that's what I did. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.